Most entrepreneurs are drowning in data that doesn't actually tell them anything useful. Maybe you're tracking website visits, email open rates, social media likes, click throughs, and somehow you still have no idea if your business is actually moving forward. Well, that stops today. All right, I get it. You've heard it, right? You need to be tracking data. You need your KPIs, which stands for key performance indicators. But the fact is, there are millions of things that you could be tracking as a business owner, right? And most business owners, most entrepreneurs are tracking metrics because they've been told you make sure you're tracking those numbers, right? So they set up a dashboard, maybe an Excel spreadsheet or Google sheet or something like this, and they've got numbers everywhere, but they're not actually telling them anything useful. And here's the fact: every single piece of data that you track, every KPI should be answering one specific question, and it is this: tracking this KPI, is this helping me reach a specific goal? So let's break this down a little bit here. Your data needs to serve a purpose. If you're tracking data that doesn't attach itself to a specific goal, it's just going to be a number on a screen, right? It's not telling you anything, it's not connected to anything. Every metric that you track should have a clear connection to something you're actively trying to achieve. If you can't explain why you are tracking something and what specifically you're going to do with that information, it's just taking up space on your dashboard. All right, so let's talk through an example of this. Since we're out here on YouTube, let's say you have a goal of getting your YouTube channel to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of Q4 or Q1, whatever it is. Now, here's the wrong approach, and here's what most people will do. They will set up something on their KPI dashboard, and they're going to check their subscriber count maybe every single week. And at the end of every week, they update that number. They might even add a formula to be showing what is the percent, growth. And then you celebrate it when it goes up, 'cause you're like, oh yeah, we're getting there. And then you feel really discouraged when it goes down. But if that's it, if you're just tracking what are my numbers of subscribers and how is that changing week over week or month over month, well, that is useless because you don't have any insight into what is actually driving that number, right? Putting content out on YouTube and just tracking number of subscribers isn't really getting to the heart of the matter here. The right approach, what we need to be putting in place, is to work backwards from the goal. And in this situation, if the goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers, the right approach is to work backward and understand what drives someone to actually subscribe. What is that journey? What are the actual numbers that I need to be tracking? Because people don't just subscribe out of thin air. When we think about life out here on YouTube, the logical steps that you can think through is, all right, well, somebody needs to find my video, right? So, what metrics, what KPIs make sense for me to track in terms of somebody finding my video? For this example, maybe it is that you need to be tracking impressions, right? Tracking actually how many people are seeing your videos suggested. Another possible KPI could be, what is your click-through rate on your thumbnails, right? Are people intrigued enough to actually click, which ties to that next step, right? So they need to find your video, but then they also need to watch enough of it, right? So maybe they're finding it, but are you tracking what is the click-through rate and how long are they watching your videos, right? This is all data that you could be tracking. So maybe you need to be tracking the average view duration. Maybe they're finding your videos, maybe they're clicking on it, but after 10 seconds, they're leaving and nobody's staying around to watch your 10 or 30-minute video. Now, they also, after they've found you and they've watched your video, they need to be compelled to actually want to subscribe. An interesting KPI here might be, okay, well, what percentage of viewers are actually subscribing? So think about this. If all you're tracking is, okay, is my subscriber rate going up, right? And you're not following the journey to see what is it that's actually happening, you're not going to know what you may need to be changing or tweaking in order to get to that number, right? If all you're seeing is that the subscriber rates aren't going up, you might be thinking, oh, my videos, I'm just not posting the right content. And it might be that the content is not the problem. It might be that the click through rate on your thumbnail is really bad. And this gives you the opportunity to test different thumbnails. Maybe your click through rate on your thumbnail is phenomenal, but you discover that people are dropping off after the first 30 seconds. Well, now that tells you a different story, right? Oh, I'm not getting them hooked in quick enough. Right? So you see just tracking that top level number that's attached to a goal without actually saying, what's the journey and the path here? What are the real numbers that I need to track so that I can do something actionable with them? So for every KPI that you are tracking, it needs to be tied to a goal, but then you also need to be knowing, what am I doing with that information? You need to be able to explain that, right? So if you're seeing low click-through rates, now you know what, I'm going to test some different thumbnails and maybe different titles. Again, if you're seeing people dropping off, now you get to go in and say, well, let me look at those first. If I see everyone dropping off after 2 minutes, let me go look at that and see what's going on. Now, if you see certain videos that really kind of go viral or are outliers, now you get to analyze those and go, ooh, this one really landed. Is this a topic I need to double down on? Or did I change something up with this video that led to this one doing really well? The fact is, this is what separates useful data, useful KPIs from just vanity ones. The framework I want you to start thinking about when you're thinking about your KPIs is this, right? Starts with a specific goal. So in our example, my goal is to hit, someone has a goal to hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now, the second step, you need to map that journey that they're going to take, right? What is the journey for someone to actually subscribe? Once you've mapped out that journey, think through, what are the key decision points along that journey, right? And with YouTube, it's finding, it's clicking, it's actually watching. Those are the KPIs, those decision points. Then the setting up and tracking is the easy part, right? You don't need a sophisticated piece of software for this, right? I just use Google Sheets. That's where we track our KPIs. And then once you've done that, once you've set up your system to track it, now the most important part is, what system are you putting in place to use that data to make decisions? Tracking it is not going to give you any value if you're not looking at it and then making decisions on what you're doing it. All right. So again, the mistakes that you're going to be avoiding, you're not going to track anything anymore just because it's an easy number to track or someone out there said, oh, you should be tracking X, Y, or Z. Also, you shouldn't be comparing your metrics to someone else's because it's not apples to apples, right? Businesses are different. So just because someone else tells you what their benchmark number is, don't assume that yours should be the same. You're going to stop getting lost in data that's just interesting but not actionable. And friends, you don't need a dashboard with 25,000 metrics on it, right? You'd spend all day just looking at data. So here's what I want you to do if you have not really thought through KPIs. I want you, if you are tracking them right now, look at what you're currently tracking and ask yourself, what goal does this connect to? Is this even tied to something I'm working on in the business? And if not, maybe you just stop tracking that, right? It's probably time to stop tracking it. Now, it might be that, for instance, with the YouTube, well, I'm tracking number of subscribers because I have a goal for that. But maybe it's that you haven't gone that next layer down of what are the decision points along the way, right? Are the metrics telling you a story that is showing you, yes, you're moving closer to your goal or not? And is the metric tied to an actionable thing that you can test and change if you don't like the data that you're seeing? So here's what I'd love for you guys to do. Drop in the comments and let me know, what is a key metric that you are now recognizing that is going to make sense for you to start tracking to support a specific goal, right? Because sometimes if we share it and say it out loud, now we're going to get a lot more married to it and interested to it. Now, just to let you know, as I mentioned, we have a spreadsheet that we use here at the Pink Bee, and on it, the first tab is what I call the CEO dashboard. It is a roll up of very specific numbers. There aren't that many that I am looking at every single month that lets me know, are we heading in the right direction for the goals that we have? Now, there are multiple tabs on our KPI spreadsheet because different members of my team take deeper dives into analytics. So, for example, there's a whole tab on social media. Our social media manager is tracking metrics at a very granular level. I want to see kind of a roll up. I want the 30,000-foot view of the metrics I care about. So I'm seeing what's relevant to me as a CEO, but the social media manager owns those metrics and she is tracking a lot more granulated data that is telling her what actions she needs to be taking. Now I can always pop over and look in the weeds if I want to, but remember, as the CEO, it is not your job to own and track the details of every metric, right? We need to be able to see it, but a metric should have, any KPI you're tracking should have a specific owner tied to it that's responsible for tracking it and then empowered to make decisions about what to do with that information. Data can be incredibly useful or it can be a complete waste of time, depending upon if you are using it right. So happy KPI tracking, and I'll see you back here again real soon.